Hi Focus Friend, in this video I'll share with you my experience with taking Adderall. My first experience with taking Adderall 5 years ago was effing terrible. My jaw was locking and tight, and while I felt like I could focus for the time that I was on the Adderall, once it wore off, I just felt like spaced out, like my body and brain were exhausted, almost like that feeling after a night of partying, but like without the headache, but just like the mental and physical fatigue. So it might surprise you to hear that 5 years later, Adderall is the drug that I'm currently taking. So how did I get here? After swearing off Adderall and only using things in the Ritalin family like Ritalin and Concerta, I decided to experiment with my medication. Heck no, I was not going near Adderall again. But my psychiatrist said that he had a lot of patients that really did very well on Vyvanse, which is in the amphetamine family like Adderall. And so I gave Vyvanse a shot. And the truth was that I loved Vyvanse. If you want, you can see my review on that. It gets my award for best all-around ADD medication. And I was planning to stay on Vyvanse. But one downside of a long-acting medication like Vyvanse that lasts for 12, 14 hours is that you as the patient have less control over when you want medication and when you don't. What if you only want to be medicated for 6 hours? And me personally, I can be a bit of a control freak. And so when COVID and quarantine hit and I started working from home all the time, I started to want that flexibility of deciding if I was going to be medicated for 4 hours or 6 hours or 10 hours. And since I had such a good experience on the amphetamine family Vyvanse, I decided to give Adderall another shot. And this time it was different. So I'll tell you what it feels like to be on Adderall, what I find that it's good for, and what are some of the things that I can't do as well as I could do on, say, Ritalin or Concerta. So firstly, much like Vyvanse does, to me, Adderall feels like ADD coffee. I have more energy, more focus, and just more motivation and ability to be productive. Also, like with Vyvanse, I find with Adderall, it works very fast because it's instant release. So when I take a pill in the morning, it will kick in half an hour. I find that Adderall is a very good all-around stimulant for me. So I can do meetings and I can socialize and I can do desk work and I can do all sorts of things. And I'm able to switch between those modes. Whereas on Ritalin and Concerta, I find that I tend to get a little bit too intense and focused and kind of which can be difficult in meetings. Sorry, colleagues. The flip side of that is that the focus when I'm doing really difficult, distasteful work that I don't want to be doing, the focus isn't quite as intense and strong as it is on the Ritalin family drugs. If I increase the dosage to try to get more focus, the other side effects like heart beating fast, jittery, anxious, negate and override any benefit in increased focus that I get. To address this, I'm actually on a relatively uncommon prescription, which is 15 milligrams of Adderall and a 5 milligram rescue dose of Ritalin. So in addition to having the benefit of the 5 milligram Ritalin rescue dose that lets me focus on more difficult desk work, it also addresses another potential side effect of Adderall, which is that it can interfere with sleep depending on how late you take it. So working backwards from my bedtime, the latest that I'll take an Adderall dose is 9 hours before I'm gonna go to sleep. Whereas I can do a Ritalin dose up to 5 or 6 hours before I go to sleep. So having this as a rescue dose lets me have the option of additional medication in the afternoon if I find that the effects are wearing off too much and I need to stay focused without screwing up my sleep. I'll admit that my psychiatrist doesn't love this prescription, but combining the two medications is not unheard of. And yes, I am a bit of a control freak, but this combination works really well for me, and so my psychiatrist is willing to do it. There is just one other side effect that I'll mention. So I've already talked about some of these from my experience, like the anxiety and agitation. If I didn't mention agitation, I'd say that it's definitely lower than my agitation on Ritalin or Concerta. Slightly higher than not taking ADD meds, but definitely manageable. The one I want to talk about is loss of appetite. So in my experience, you definitely will lose your appetite with taking Adderall. So you do need to manage for that. I personally manage for that by trying to eat a very large breakfast and then forcing some sort of lunch down. The reason is that if you don't eat, you're gonna feel terrible at the end of the day and then probably binge right before you go to sleep, and then you're gonna wake up feeling like ugh. So you do want to manage it knowing that you will likely have a loss of appetite. So that's been my experience. Now, just to bring it full circle, what I described at the start of this video is what happens if your dosage is too high. Now that I'm on an appropriate dose of Adderall, I find that it really does work nicely. If I'm looking for all day focus by taking it, my energy and focus are definitely a little bit more roller coaster and cyclic than they are on the all day Vyvanse. But I'm willing to take this trade-off for the increased flexibility in when and how much I want to take each day. So if you had a terrible experience with Adderall like I did my first time, do you love it? Are you a fan? Let me and the other viewers know in the comments below. I do want to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this content and would be so kind as to like the video, that would be appreciated. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I've got other medication reviews coming out over the next few weeks. I've also got some behind the scenes ADD IRL videos where I show you how I actually implement the productivity strategies in my own life that I share on this channel. So subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss those, and I will see you in the next video.